Music Matters. Kwame, I do. How are you, brother?
Not too bad. Yeah, I'm cool. I can't complain. It's hard to complain.
Yes, sir. Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it. Great to officially meet you.
Thanks for having the guy.
Yeah, of course. How you feeling today, dude? How's your week been? How's your life going lately?
I think I'm in like transformative period. Like this like busiest week, but like most like I gotta get some money. Like it's like it's like that. Like I'm like busiest, most hustling week this week. And like going out of town and stuff. So.
Yeah, you mentioned you're going to San Diego and then the Bay, right?
Yeah. Bay. No, I'm not going to the Bay. I am going to West Side, Venice.
Nice. Okay.
My homeboy Zay, he has 2 performances that I'm gonna be like on crew for.
Nice. That's what's up.
Yeah, headed to SD. I haven't been out of town since like August. I haven't been out of town since I went to Oakland.
Yeah, okay.
To perform.
Damn, that's got to be so different from me to you, because I feel like I can't fucking stop going out of town just because, like, it's interesting. I was thinking about this. Like, I mean, I've been back and forth to the Bay a lot recently for, like, all kinds of different reasons. Some good, some bad, whatever. But it's interesting. Like, I was thinking about this morning. It's so easy to just find yourself slipping back into going home so fucking often when you live like a modest 5 hours apart.
Yeah,
it's probably so different for you being from Jersey, where it's like it's a whole trek to go home.
Bruh, what? Yeah. That's also the last time I was I think early August. That was the last time I was in Jersey.
How much do you go back?
Not as much as I want to.
Yeah, it's hard,
like,
dude.
You know, it's like I'll go, but then it's like if I'm gonna just always think I have something to do here. So it's just like, oh, well, I have to be in LA. Yeah, it's freaky.
I feel the same way. Like emphasis on the asterisk there too. It's like I have to be here, but it's like I don't know. Do I really? I am realizing recently more and more that I can work remotely for the most part. But I will say, bro, there is certainly something to being in the same place for a long extended period of time and building up a routine and not having that be broken when you go somewhere else. It's because like, I mean, I always say like I'm like, oh, like I'll go to this place and it's whatever because I can work remote, you know, I'll work out there, like whatever. But it's like as soon as you leave home, everything is just off the table routine wise. It's so fucking difficult to keep it going.
Seriously, like where's the structure?
Yeah,
like it's definitely a challenge. I know it's possible, but like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's possible, but it's hard. It always feels like the first thing to go. Yeah, that's sick that you're going out on the road with the homie though. That was something I definitely want to ask you about because you wear so many hats as a musician. Like you're a DJ and you're a producer and you're an artist and a rapper and a singer. You do all this stuff, and a graphic designer. Like you've done all these things throughout your career, which is so interesting. And I mean, at the same time, I've noticed that you have like a really robust musical community around you. Like definitely have a lot of homies in this, and you know work a lot with them, and they work a lot with you. It feels very cohesive in a really cool way. And I was curious. Do you think you kind of begin to grow like that big of a musical community because of all these hats that you wear? You know, kind of having that ability to like, I'll do your cover art, or like I'll produce this for you, or you know, I'll do the engineering on this. Like, do you think that kind of allows you to grow like a big group of musicians around you that are doing similar things? Yeah,
you know, it's just like, how could I really explain it? It's really funny because I learned how to do most of these things for myself.
Do you think it was out of necessity?
Yeah. Nice. Definitely. I didn't really know any producers or anything growing up. My first friend who's also a producer was my homeboy. He's an artist. He goes by Sullivan. But I met him and I was turning 19. But I started making music when I was like 16. Like I've been rapping since I was 12. Yeah. So that whole span of time, like I was recording myself and like mixing myself badly, but like I was mixing myself. All right, it was all right. I'm dragging it, but it was definitely out of necessity. Like someone's got to make the cover, and then eventually it became like, you know, someone's got to make the beat, someone's got to finish this mix, and it just all came to me. And then it came around, and it was like, I do have a bunch of homies who are in the same predicament, and I just remember being in those myself, to where it's like, bro, like. Come on, like we finna finish this mix, bro. Like we finna get this beat, shorty. Yeah, it's gonna happen. Yeah, it's always tough too once you get out of that mindset of necessity, because then it becomes. I mean, I've certainly found this. It becomes difficult to like. I suppose like, well, what's the best way to say this? It gets difficult to like
allow yourself to rely on other people for things when you've been doing it all yourself for so long? And there's a variety of reasons for that. Like, there's a quality thing, there's like a will they get it done thing, there's like a it's a blessing and a curse, because you wear all these hats and you learn how to do all these things, and you have like a very good handle on all aspects of the creative process. But then when you kind of break out of that period of necessity, and you can delegate better, like you can get a producer and an engineer and whatever, and you can focus on what you're the best at, it becomes kind of hard to delegate, because at least I have tended to want to have my hand in a bit of everything creative.
Definitely.
It certainly gets difficult.
Yeah, I feel the same way, very much so. Like, I noticed that I think the cool part about doing a lot of stuff yourself, which is like you said, like also like the challenge to it, is that you're building something that no one but yourself can build.
Yeah.
So it's
like you are the sum of every part.
Yeah. So when it comes down to that, it's like it's hard to. It might be a bit more difficult for people it might be more difficult for people to understand what you're doing at a certain level, like at a point. Like I feel like even in a literal sense, like, if multiple people collaborate on a building, like it's a sum of ideas that might like look like something that's like never been done before, but it might be a bit easier to like explain or come across or digest.
Yeah.
I feel like if it's just like your hands and your vision, then like whatever you're going to create, it can still have some sort of look to it that people can maybe understand, but it might take a while. Like you might have to build a few buildings.
Yeah, I follow you. Like it's kind of like you're flying too close to the sun. Like you're kind of just translating something in a way that's adaptable and understandable to only your vision. But when you're collaborating with a lot of folks, it has to be applicable, and it has to be like it has to make sense with all of your visions and all of your heads. And I think sometimes when you do that, you're kind of making something that's more, I suppose, consumable, or maybe just more enjoyable for more people. If you had to get like 4 heads to agree on it, or 5 heads or whatever, that definitely changed the whole dynamic of it.
High key.
Yeah. Do you think that like because of the fact that you've worked with so many different people over the years, you've become more selective in the process with what you do and do not like? Like, what do you kind of look for in a collaborator? And I assume it's difficult just being around so many people all the time. You're not always going to mesh with somebody creatively that you really mesh with on a personal level. So how do you kind of separate those two things, and how have you kind of built up those relationships that you want to have as long-term creative partners?
It just be like, honestly, it definitely did get a lot more selective. And it's just like, I think, it's leaning into that aspect of like, okay, what can I get from someone that I can't like replicate for myself? And so that'll always come out with like somebody who just ends up being like a favorite artist of mine, whether or not they're a homie. It's like, oh man, like I like the way that this person writes, like they have to come here, or like I like how this person plays guitar, their style of guitar. It's just random stuff like that, where it's like, especially because like I'm a bit more of like a low key, like bitter elitist hater type when it comes to like my music taste.
Interesting.
So it's like, that being said, like most of the people who I like, most of the people I'll like go out my way to work with just end up being like my favorite artists who do maybe something very specific. When you say like you think you have like a pretty like specific taste in music, is that in stuff you listen to or stuff you make? Because there is something, I mean, I was gonna bring this up later, but the new project, it definitely feels a bit out of the lane of things that you've done before. There is like, I feel like, at least what I read from it and heard from it, it definitely, there were some indieisms to it, a bit slower, like melodic choices, and it was almost like more lo-fi, in a way that definitely didn't feel like production that you'd kind of explored before. So do you feel like it's hard for you to experiment and try new things musically, and you have very specific tastes, or do you feel like you get a lot out of like trying these new things creatively that aren't in the more traditional lane that you've kind of been in the past? Oh, it's funny. I think the harder thing for me is pulling back, because I spend more time in my room making some more like freakier experimental ideas, and then like looking to find myself like like don't go too far off, or else that idea is not gonna get done.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to just like, you know, I'm gonna make a beat and then I'm gonna write and then I'd rather have a good balance to that. I don't feel like I like if I get into a groove, if I just like work on music on a daily basis, I can get into a groove and be more grounded that way. But a lot of stuff like that, like the newer sing-songy stuff I'm doing that's coming out, compared to like a lot of more, I wouldn't even say like my hip hop is generally conventional. You know, I don't know what it means to that extent, but like even then, like, you know, it always feels like out there for me. So I do my best to be like, let me like bring it in, like let me make it still feel like it's more of like I'd rather it feel more like a story I'm telling rather than like a dream, if that makes sense.
What do you mean? Like, what's the difference to you between the story and the dream?
Like a dreamlike state, there isn't really any boundaries. So, you know, as opposed to like a story where it's like you can paint a picture, and even if it's a bit more exaggerated or like, you know, a lot more whimsical, like it's still a pretty grounded thing. Like I still want something for people to see and feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of like, I mean, I guess spoon feeding isn't the right word, but it's sort of like giving people like a carved out thing that's more specific, and like it's meant to tell a very specific story and say something very specific, opposed to like giving them almost like a canvas to paint on top of. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's not so much one or the other. It's just that, you know, I can acknowledge that like without me like giving up any integrity, like I can acknowledge that like what am I really trying to say? Like then an idea just needs to get finished. Like I don't need to venture too deep into like one specific song to like get a point across.
There's a hell of a lot of truth to that, I think. Like finishing ideas before you move on. I think a lot of people get this demo-itis where they just sort of like demo after demo after demo, you know, let me like half make a beat, let me half write this verse, whatever. And I think when you do that, you leave a lot on the table. Like you leave a lot of potential fireworks that you may or may not have found at the end of a song on the table when you're not just fully seeing something through. It's kind of like the way that I sort of think about it creatively is like turning over every stone. It's like you just kind of got to keep turning shit over until you find the gold underneath one of the rocks, you know?
Yeah, at the very least, I think I like to, like, I've been on like I'll go on like a big rant with my homies and like acquaintances and talk about like it feels like working on music on a daily basis, but everything leading into like finishing ideas, not so much as starting them. It feels like going to the gym. Yeah. You know? So it's like, wow. It's in that same way. Like the more reps you get, the more you understand it's not really about like one particular thing you're doing. You know, your whole body isn't going to get shaped up because you're doing your arms.
Also, you're low-key erasing like progress when you're not just continuously doing it. It's like if I go to the gym hella hard for 2 weeks, if I don't go the next 2 weeks, it doesn't really fucking matter. Like, I'm not going to see any results.
No, you're burnt out.
Yeah. Similarly, musically, I think, or even anything artistically, I do find that, like, momentum is huge, bro. The momentum is a game changer. And not just artistic endeavors, but every endeavor, I feel like. But I guess specifically in artistic endeavors, it kind of has this nature of, like, I don't know, just like rolling over onto itself almost, where it's like if you have 3 really good days in a row, the 4th day doesn't feel as daunting, and then because it doesn't feel as daunting, you feel more creative, and when you feel more creative, better ideas come. It's just kind of this whole spiral, this whole like butterfly effect almost, that like it only can pretty much come from just being cohesive. I feel like
high key. Yeah,
it's super huge. It's interesting. You made the distinction. You said you started rapping at 12 but making songs at 16. You said that a bit ago, which I think is a really cool distinction, because like it's true, like there, you know, you can like start making music but not songs until a different period of time. So kind of walk me through like that time period between when you started rapping versus when you started making songs, and why do you feel like those are 2 different time periods, and how did you kind of, you know, learn all these skills that you have now to get to the place where you feel like you could make songs instead of just rap?
I think, well, initially I just like to I like to make sure I keep what I'm talking about like very distinct in a way where like everything can have truth in itself. So when I say like I'm rapping at 12 but I'm making music at 16, it's like when I'm 12 years old, I'm just writing verses on paper. Like me and my friends are doing like lunch table rapping, like we dissing each other and stuff, and I'm not that great. There's no beat, like it's not
just
really
having fun.
Yeah, this isn't like hooks, verse, chorus. Like, And I started to segue into that stuff when I was around like 13, turning 14. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I made the decision to become a career artist until I was about 16. Until like a little after 16.
Do you remember your mindset when you kind of made that decision? Where were you at in life, and why did you kind of decide to go that way?
I was at a high school in Pennsylvania, and I had a graphic design teacher, Mr. D'Acosta. That's my dog. And amidst he had a graphic design course like at the school, which was like really cool because I was just into art. I just thought I was gonna work in like graphic design and be something like tech related, but still maybe some art. Yeah. But he was just like, find something, like, you don't have to do this, like, just find something you like to do and then get good at it and then make money off it. He just said that shit like straight up. And once he said that, I was just like, wow. And I knew I liked rapping a lot at the time. And I thought I was going to like animate. I wanted to draw. I was drawing all the time. So I thought I'd be an animator. But in the time in which he said that, I was already rapping like a lot, just like writing verses and stuff. Not even so much recording yet. But it was from that point in which he's told me that. He told our class that I was like, oh, well, I like to rap. And I've already seen people like make money off it from being really good at it. So it just seemed pretty possible at that point.
Wow, bro. Yeah. A good teacher can change the kid's fucking life, man.
Goes a long way, man.
Yeah. And you know that's very simple advice, but it's so true. Like, it really is that simple.
Brought me here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it really is that simple. Sometimes those like baseline principles are things that we have to remind ourselves, or things we have to learn before we can like advance in anything. Yeah. Because there's so much truth to that. It really comes down to that, right? It's like, if you love something enough to do it every single day, you are bound to find some way to make money off it. There's ways to make money off of fucking everything. Everything. Like, it may not be easy and it may not reveal itself immediately, but if you do something for long enough and you love it enough, there will become a fucking, like, you'll make a way to make money off it. Yeah, dog. It just takes time to figure that out. You know?
Definitely.
When do you think that became like possible for you? Like, so there's that period of time where you decide you want to become a rapper, and then you kind of, you know, start accumulating all these skills, and now I would assume, at least on the business end of things, you're in a pretty advantageous position having so many skills under your belt, being able to produce, being able to rap. You can do a feature for money, you can produce, you can engineer, you can mix, you can master, you can do graphic, like, there's all these different things, perform, DJ, whatever. It opens up a lot more freedom financially, or ways to, you know, make this into a business. So walk me through, like, you know, you decide you want to start making songs, and then are you still in Jersey at that point, or when do you eventually get out here and, you know, give this thing like a real shot?
I finished high school out of state, so I'm in Pennsylvania when I start my career as a music artist, and that takes me to a college that's outside of Pittsburgh, and that's where I meet like more music friends. I have a music friend in high school who I was making music with, a few of them, but like one of them who went to the same college with me. And then we met our friend who, my homie, My Favorite Color, who was already over there. And eventually we all like left school, and then I moved out here. And that was around like 19. I was 19. Yeah, I was 19.
When you dropped out?
Yeah, when I dropped out,
sophomore,
and I just came here. I was like a freshman. It was my freshman year.
Gotcha.
So I just finished my freshman year and I left.
Yeah.
And then
it's pretty much what I did too. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, like, let me just lean into it or whatever. Yeah. Like, yeah, like even Willis, My Favorite Color, he was like, I was on some like, yeah, I'm gonna get on like in Pittsburgh and I'm gonna just move to LA after. And he was on some like, why don't you just like go to LA now?
Wait, so you guys were going to school in Pittsburgh?
Like outside of Pittsburgh.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. I have a homie from Pittsburgh who I always talk about. He talks about how there's no fucking musicians in Pittsburgh, and I always prove him wrong. So I'll have to show him this interview. But,
oh yeah.
Yeah, but
it's Pittsburgh. I mean, the music scene in Pittsburgh is an interesting thing, and like I don't want to say too much, not being from there, but everything I've observed for a really long time, the knowledge I've gained and just being there enough. It's very polarizing over there.
Interesting. In what way?
Let's say like in a very similar way as like Chicago, where it's like you know, Chance the Rapper, Saba, No Name, but then it'd be like G Herbo, Lil Baby, Lil Durk. It'd be like it's like that in Pittsburgh, and it was like that for a very long time. What do you mean?
You don't think like G Herbo and No Name would hop on a song together?
I like both of them. Like people, I like, especially at that time. I like both of them like the exact same way, same part of the brain, and I like them both. And nothing's wrong with either of them in my opinion. But I'm in the terms of like, you know, expressing yourself like sonically, they were very polarizing. So like, you know, I'm like leaning in, now I'm like, oh, I'm not going to talk about a city. I'm talking about like two cities now. But like Pittsburgh, when I got in there, like it seemed polarizing in that way, where it's like the hip hop scene for like street stuff was that, and then the hip hop scene for more like jazzier, artsy, alternative stuff was that.
And they weren't kind of intertwined?
No.
Interesting.
Not as far as I seen. You know, still not being from there. It seemed like even with my homie, it was just like I watched him do both, and I think that's what brought him to just like do very well in the city. Yeah. Like he's popping over in Pittsburgh, and I think it was just like being both of those things. Yeah. You know, or at least taking it there like musically, like he'll have like a guy who does like this, and then he'll have a guy who like does like the inverse of that. Like that's the same song or the same project.
Yeah, and it's all the same musical community, but it's different worlds within it. The Bay feels very similar to that. The Bay has like but it's interesting in the Bay because like, I think the dynamics run even deeper in that sense, in terms of like, I don't know, the way that it generally affects music within the city, because it's like there are very much those two worlds. There's certainly like a more eclectic, like more, I mean, there's all kinds of different like eclectic rap coming out of the Bay, whether it's like someone like Dreamwake, this producer out of San Jose, or like Kid Lords, this cool like hip hop kind of like weird electronic group out of San Jose, or like, you know, more like cool like alternative AG Club type stuff out of Antioch, or like whatever. There's all kinds of alternative like hip hop coming out of the Bay, but that's so different. And like, or even like this guy Seiji Oda coming out of Oakland right now, super fire. Seiji's super fire. Like all kinds of people doing cool alternative shit. Rika Sage at a sack, but like that's so different than like you know, the EBK dudes, or like Young Slowby, or like even like some of the old hyphy shit, like like anything from like SOB to like, you know, any like the sack shit, but just two very different worlds. And I think what frustrates me very much about the state of Bay Area hip hop is the way in which the media culture only focuses on one of those two things, and it is the more street driven stuff. And I think it, not that that's inherently a bad thing, I think it's okay, but I just think it leaves a lack of representation for other sorts of hip hop that come out of the city. And I think that leaves fans on the outside that aren't really, you know, very deep into the inside circle of like, you know, really caring about a lot of this music. It leads them to believe there's only one thing coming out of that area. And I think sometimes that leaves people not exploring. Whereas it should, you know, I think media's job should be to influence people to explore. I'm talking about like Thizzler and like a lot of like like that shit. But it's just like it leaves people to not explore in the same way that I think it could. And I think I feel very strongly that it's people's job in music media to like give folks, again, like those stones to turn over, like those clues to go deeper and find what they like, you know?
Definitely. In that same sort of way, I feel like, I think in a very similar way, and I understand it. I understand it too, like just the framework of a city, and like
totally.
Some people aren't around.
Yeah,
and
that's
some
true.
people aren't outside. Like I think those are the things that can add up too, because I know people. You know, I have homies who still, not even just my own homies, but like you can still see in certain cities or like major areas where if it's a bigger city but not too big, or maybe a large town, maybe people will still think that the local route is something to do. And like I'll be like, bro, like we have the internet, you know? And that'll really be a thing where it works. Like I have homies who popped off in Pittsburgh, but like they weren't around, they just were on the internet. And the same thing with like in Jersey, like same thing in New Jersey. Totally. New Jersey is very much a specific thing going on, in my opinion, at least North Jersey, where like I would live at. And it's like you're either
what kind of stuff's going out there out there.
Well, before pre-pandemic,
I didn't mean that like a sarcastic way, by the way.
No,
I wasn't like, what the fuck's going on out there? I was just genuinely curious.
You're good. I remember like being like, cause I live, let's say I grew up like between Newark and like a half hour south of Newark.
Okay. Which is closer to New York, right?
I'm like pretty close to like Staten Island.
Okay, gotcha. Nice. Okay.
So I would be like, okay, like, you know, I'm gonna figure out the music scene. What's the temperature in New Jersey? Like, what's going on? And it would be a lot of like, everyone's good at rapping, but when it comes to the song making aspect, you find a lot of people who either they'll just like make a remix of maybe like the trendiest thing going on. Like, you know, if it's like trap music and auto-tune, like everyone's gonna do that. If it's like more of like a New York drill before Jersey drill, like everyone's gonna do that. You know, if it sounds like Lil Baby's the hottest, like you're gonna get some Lil Baby type people. Yeah. So it would either be that or like I'm gonna rap really good on some like Bad Boy remix or like early 2000s Shiny Suit derivative. You like Shiny Suit revisionist, like it's freaky, and nothing that in that regard was like my speed. So I just ended up like I ended up like not even being there. Like I moved out here to make this music thing happen, and it was just off of that. It's better now because of the pandemic. I think it's better everywhere, but
that's a fascinating concept. I mean, it always has been. Like somebody being from a localized musical community, but not really. I don't want to say, like I suppose fitting in isn't the correct word, but maybe just not like subscribing entirely to that localized sound and then finding respite in the internet. That's been a very common theme that I've seen. I think in the last couple of years I've interviewed artists from all over the country, is that thing. I mean, like one person that comes to mind here, and not to say that he's not, he's very involved in the local scene, so I don't mean to say this at all, and I love this person to death, but this guy Ozer out of San Francisco, incredible rapper. He's so good, man. But he's somebody who makes music that isn't like very traditionally I guess Bay Area hip hop leaning, but he's found a huge audience on the internet. And like there's all kinds of folks like that. We had this guy, do you know Jev?
JEV?
Yeah.
I think so,
yeah. He's super sick. But anyway, we had him on the show the other day, and he's somebody who moved around a lot. Really, really cool rapper. But he moved around a lot and never really found refuge in a local sound either, and kind of found this thing on the internet, which I think is so cool. And I think it's becoming more and more of a thing. Like it's becoming common practice, I think, for, I mean, not only in rap, but in a lot of genres, for people who like, you know, maybe they don't feel like they really fit in or subscribe to that localized sound that they kind of grew up around, but they find what they're looking for on the internet, which I think is so cool, because those people 15 years ago might just not have made music.
Type shit, bro. It's exactly what it is. Like I feel like, you know, I feel that with myself. Like I wouldn't say I feel very much like I love New Jersey and that's where I'm from for real, but I think if I didn't think, like I have homies who I know where it's like I watch them adhere to, you know, what works around them because they think that like that's how you can work your way up, and I don't think that's really true, you know, because like of course, like you know, you could always say that being unique and having a unique sound, like obviously that works, but without the without a place to really put it where people are going to understand it, it's going to be a bit more of an uphill battle. And
for sure,
I feel like that's just how it is, like as a person, you know, like it's like even if we talk about New Jersey, it's like not a lot of people in Jersey for a long time knew who I was just based off of like where I would be. Like I just wouldn't be like, I'd be very out the way, you know? So it's like, you know, it'd be like, oh, who's this guy? And then that's already going to be half the battle. And then like, because I'm not really around and I'm doing my own thing or whatever sound or interest developed from that, you know, the music I'm going to present might also just have that effect. Yeah. To which is like, you know, people might like it or not, but like either way, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's something where like it's a bit more to take in than just something that you would expect from that area. You know? I
think there's such an interesting balance to it, because I think like you 100%, like, I think it's pretty inarguable. Like, you still got to be outside. Like you still got to know people, got to meet people, you got to go to shows, you got to do all these things, I think, at a certain degree at least, to, like, make friends and have a musical community around you that's vast, you know, and I think that has advantages in terms of, like, a collaboration way, but also just in, like, it's good to be human and have homies way.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, in, like, people that have similar interests than you. Obviously, that's huge. But I think there's very much a balance to it now because, like, I think a lot of kids have found so much solace in the internet and they've ran to it so much that they kind of have found, like, this... I always use the term vanity numbers. They've kind of found these, like, big streaming numbers, and they've found these big follower counts without having any, like, strong in-person culture. So they go to play a show and there's not much, you know, not very many folks there, or, like,
bro, I see that happen, like, every day.
Yeah. So it's like
bad.
I think it's like you really need that balance. Like, you gotta have some kind of, you know, in-person fan base mixed with, you know, good online marketing. It's a tough balance to strike, and I think everybody just runs to the online portion of it, I will say, and I think they forget very often about the live portion of it. It's all a balance.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess at that point you were talking about being in Pittsburgh and you dropped out, so then you moved to LA at that point, correct? And you were, how old when you did that?
Turning 20.
Turning 20. Damn. Okay, so pretty young.
Yeah.
Nice. What would you say was the scariest part about doing that? How was that first couple years and how long have you been here?
Since 2017.
17.
Like, maybe not consecutive. I spent a year back in Jersey, pandemic.
Gotcha.
But yeah, 2017.
Coming out here, what was the scariest part? What were the biggest lessons you learned? And if you could do it again, is there anything you would take differently or trying to change? Like, what was the kind of the scariest part of it?
It wasn't really scary. I think the whole thing was pretty exciting and like a fever dream.
Yeah.
It was like I couldn't really say I had so much of a bad time being in Los Angeles. I think at the point in which I was like really like rooted in here for maybe like a 2-year period, like pre-pandemic, I think the one thing I could have just done is probably, I feel like it couldn't have been helped, but maybe if I found a way to like have a job, but like in something that wasn't like taxing.
Yeah.
And just to achieve that balance, like I think, especially for my age, like I think I could have got away just having like a more chill part-time job somewhere while I was like, I mean, the stuff I'm doing now where it's like, if I knew how to get into a rhythm, maybe I would have had gotten, you know, to like a higher point in my music career now, like way earlier. And I almost did, actually, even me just saying it out loud. But I think the biggest challenge was just like understanding understanding the real world.
Yeah.
That was the biggest challenge, like, because it felt like, not like I'm already like 19 all the way up until like 22, really like being in here.
Yeah.
And I don't know nothing about nothing. Like, I only know so much that isn't like music related by now.
Yeah.
Or by then. So I think it was just difficult to understand that, like, I don't know, everything costs money, or like, you know, you should, if you're gonna do the thing you want to do, make sure it's always being done while you're figuring it out. Like, it's not like go away and invest your time to figure it out and then come back and do it.
Yeah.
It's gotta just be both happening at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
And like, if I had more of a, you know, drive or awareness, maybe I would have like gotten into finishing ideas more back then, because I knew how to produce and I knew how to mix, but I really didn't take it upon myself to be good enough to do it on my own until the pandemic. Gotcha.
Interesting. What was that period of time like for you in the pandemic? Did you really lock in and kind of like, you know, up a lot of those skills and like learn a lot of stuff during that period of time? Was it because you said you went back to Jersey?
Yeah, 2021. And then 2020 I spent locked in heavy
in LA.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just like, I was like living with a partner and I was making beats like almost every day, mixing those beats every single day, recording almost every single day. And it was just like you know, I managed to make the most out of the time we had away from our conventional pattern.
Yeah.
I like completely locked in and found, you know, I think I just like was able to work on getting to make something for myself sound wise. And it was like
interesting.
Even just the way that I got there was just like I knew how to produce because I was surrounded by a bunch of really good producers. And I was all right at mixing, but like that, a lot of that also came by knowing producers who engineer or just knowing good engineers.
Yeah.
But when the pandemic came, it was
no
like,
more excuses.
Yeah, it was even like I knew before I even asked anyone, I just knew that like we're all gonna need our time to work on our own stuff. So I can't really ask anybody to mix a bunch of songs or like mix a project not with at least like not paying them, and I just knew I couldn't like just do that all the time, so it just turned into that. I
think that level of what would the word be of what's the word I'm thinking of, like being a self-starter, like I don't know what that word would be.
Would it be like
to my tongue,
like proactive?
Yeah, something like that, whatever. Something like that. That's pretty much what I was thinking of. But yeah, like having that proactiveness, I think it never dawned on me how vital that was prior to the pandemic. Also because I was pretty young. I mean, I was 18 during the pandemic. But it's weird now thinking back on that period of time, because like even when I started interviewing people in like 2022, I would talk about it, and like the pandemic had just ended. Now, like that shit was 5 years ago, bro. That's a long time. It's
half a decade.
Yeah, that's a trip to think about. Holy shit. That'd be really strange being like experiencing that pretty much right after moving away from home, right?
Yeah.
Like a year after?
Maybe like 2
years after?
Well,
because you weren't really like super, like, I mean, obviously you're settled here at that point, but it's not like you're like, oh, like I've been living in LA for a while now. It's like you're still relatively new, so it had to be a strange experience, kind of, you know, experiencing the city in that way, that early, that fast.
I think I managed to have my feet rooted in like pretty quickly, but that's just because I was just one to explore. Yeah. So I think, you know, where it might take people 2 years to really adjust to Los Angeles, I think the time in which I spent was like, it was just easy. Like I wasn't afraid to navigate and just like go around, and like I didn't have a car, so like at the time, so I was really like, oh, we're there. Yeah, we're gonna go to the Valley today. Like we're going to Inglewood today. Like wherever we went, like I'm really absorbing the city and understanding like what's chill, what's not, what's more metropolitan, what's suburban, what's more like borderline rural. Like, yeah. So I think just having all that in mind, it was already like, I was already pretty like, okay. And I like finished high school away from my home, like my home. So like I was already used to just being away and just being able to like survive, but it only meant so much. But still like I think I was able to just have an away from home experience like a lot younger, so I wasn't like it wasn't too overwhelming, but like I'm still a kid, so like, yeah. At the time,
I mean, I think it was overwhelming for everybody in different ways. I would imagine like for you too, your creative, well, I guess maybe I should ask that, is your creative process, because like I would guess it's very collaborative, just from like the nature of the way that you do things and like how many people you're around and stuff, and just like, you know, like all the different hats you wear. I guess I'd ask, is your process very collaborative? And then if so, how did you kind of deal with that during the pandemic? Just locking in and learning all this shit yourself?
My creative process is like not collaborative.
Interesting. I totally would think it would be, because of like how many people you're around and like how many, you know, features and stuff you have.
It's more like I'm in my, like most, if we're talking about like for myself and my own vision, and it's not on purpose, not like I'm not rocking with nobody or anything like that. It's just like when I started making music, I was just like in a room with me recording myself, and like I had friends who I would like rap with, but it's still me. If we're talking about like, you know, I'm the engineer too, so I'm steering the ship. And to this day, it's like I make my music in my room a lot of times, and if I want somebody to work on something for me or with me, it's like me going on my way, and that only happens so much. Like when you look at it, like a lot of my discography, there aren't a lot of features.
Yeah.
There's at some point you could see that there's less and less producers. So it's like I'll work with a lot of people, but it's more like Kwame can do it. Or like I want to work with like people like I have a lot of homies who are like, you know, they'll ask, and I it's something where I'll offer it like you know, the collaborative, like the door is open, or I have a hand, or like, you know, I rock with you, so like let me know like if you need a hand. Yeah, I'll get a lot of that, but a lot of my own stuff I'm working on it too, because I want to be more collaborative, but like I have a lot of songs where it's like just me. Yeah. I feel like extending your hand in that way is something that I think always comes back to you creatively. I think it can be really fulfilling, first off, and then I think second off, it just in some way, shape, or form seems to always come back in some beneficial way. Yeah. But then again, you shouldn't be offering help on the basis of like, you know, wanting to get something back, but in a cool way. I don't know if it's karma or whatever, but it seems to come back. I think like the more you build that community, the more opportunities come your way, you know? Yeah. Do you find yourself like having to kind of hop into a different mindset when you're working on somebody else's music versus your own, be that on like an engineering level or a production level? Like, are you thinking the same as when you're thinking about your own stuff, or is it kind of a different part of your brain you're turning on? I think for a lot of the work I do, like with other artists, no, I don't really do much adhering or adjusting, because I think the point of collaborating is to come in with all of whatever myself is, the same way like whoever I'm working with is going to come into doing the same thing they're doing for themselves. Yeah. Like I think things become a bit more contrived when it's like I'm going to go out my way to make it like for you in a way, not I don't know what I'm trying to say, like I don't need to adjust to anyone's vision, because no one's asking me, no one's asking to collaborate, or I'm not collaborating with anybody to like not do the thing I was already doing, or to not get the thing that someone else was already doing for me or whatever. Like, so it's just like, I'd rather just come in and just do the thing I was already doing. And if people ask after the fact for like any like sort of adjustment, I think that's a lot easier to do than like going in and like building something with someone else in mind. Yeah. To an extent. Yeah, that's super interesting. It's almost like the difference between them wanting like your help bringing something out of them versus them wanting to like kind of take a jump into the Kwame world, you know? Yeah. And like experience what the music that you're making is like in there with their spin on it. Yeah. There's something really cool about that, I think. I think that's actually like why collaborating matters on like a basis level. Just like it's the combination of those two things, and every person you combine with, your output's going to be something entirely different than it would be like just you, obviously, or you and somebody else. Yeah. It's like all those different connection points are eventually how you find the things that stick, you know? Yeah, and I think that's just like pretty natural too. So it's just like you don't need to, that's what I was saying, where like some shit should be contrived, because it's like you can just go in, not think about it, and whoever you're working with is also going in not thinking about it, and you'll just make something, and it'll whatever it sounds like is what it is. Like that's it, you know. It's just music. It's just art, like whatever it is. It's not, in a way, it's not that big of a deal. But for that same reason, like the best stuff that happens, like the best, you know, bodies of work, or I'm not gonna say best, but I think a lot of favorite bodies of work of mine, you could kind of hear that it's just like very like, it's not like, okay, we're in the studio, we're gonna make a song. Like I don't know how to really, you know, it's just like, oh, what am I looking at? How could I really say it? There's a very specific and pointed thing you're going for. It's not like you're going there like, oh, like, let's figure out how to write today. It's like we're geeked, we're going. Yeah, we don't have to get like super specific. Like I think I just like I recently like was in the studio with my homies Steven and Victoria. They're in this band called Drive. And Drive is super sick. You know, they're whatever anyone would call them, but like, you know, I think they're notably noted as like indie-ish, shoegaze-ish. And like I just brought an idea I had that I thought they would like sound cool with, and it's like, and when we did that, it was like, okay, like it's natural, like it still felt natural, even though like I had something in mind, and they didn't feel like they were like adjusting to whatever I was doing. It just felt like we're just like meeting in the middle, and I just wanted to have an idea made instead of just like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's cool. What do you think that's sick that you were in the studio with the band like that. That's cool. I mean, your music, like I was going to ask about this, and I'm curious because like it is, kind of what you said, like whatever you want to call it, I guess, genre level. But it certainly like dives into a lot of like jazz sounds and alternative jazz sounds and neo soul sounds and things that are really, really, really cool and interesting. I think really have like a very expansive sound to them sonically, like all these different worlds you can go into. It's a very ever-expanding world. I was curious, kind of being in that world of jazz or jazz rap, whatever you want to call it, neo soul, doing a lot of that stuff. How much of that is tracked live? Like, are you somebody who's going in and playing a lot of these parts live as a producer? Are you working with producers who are tracking the instruments, or is a lot of it in the box in the computer? Is it a mix of the both? I was curious about how much of it's live when you're tracking instruments.
A lot of it is in the box, because I just do, like, because I just work with like a lot of MIDI.
Yeah.
MIDI sampling, drum programming.
That's crazy. You program all your drums because they're so specific. That's really cool.
Some of them, I do some sampling too, some of it, but like sampling in which it's still not just like the loop as you may get it. Like, I like to chop it up a little bit, or at least do some, some sound design,
manipulate some of it.
But a lot of times, a lot of it is drum programming a lot of the time. And like I consider myself like as much of an electronic artist as I do a hip hop artist. Yeah. Just based off of my production.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting because that's not how I expected the process would have been at all. Because a lot of it has a lot, especially your drums. Dude. Your drums have a lot of live quality to them, so it's cool that they're samples very often. That's like really a testament to how well you're manipulating them. That's really sick. I never would have thought that. Do you play with a band live? Have you ever?
Yeah, there's this band. Their name. They go by Suede. They're really, really, really good. They're really, really a really good band, and very, very funky, very trippy, very like SoCal. Nice. They're super cool. But I did maybe 2 performances with a live band, and I want to do more. I have this habit of like I want to do more, and I just know that like when I perform live, a lot of the times where me not wanting to have a band would be like, y'all gonna hear these beats, like I made these beats. Yeah. Y'all gonna hear these beats, but like
that's the DJ in you.
Yeah, low key, like. Yeah. But it's really cool. It's really cool working with the band, and it was really cool. Like these dudes who already like knew each other and had chemistry with each other just came in and just like transcribed. They already had like everything transcribed, like all my beats. I'm like, y'all playing chords. I didn't even know I was like. I had those. I had no clue. I had no clue. Yeah, it was crazy.
I've seen a couple rappers do that with the other bands where they came in. That's always the coolest shit ever. Yeah. Like when a full band comes in and like you said, they have the chemistry and they're just kind of unifying around this one person's music. That's always so cool, bro. I love when shit like that happens. Yeah. What did how'd you meet those guys? Like, was it the kind of thing where like they liked your music and you liked theirs and you're like, fuck it, let's do kind of like a joint thing, or how'd that kind of come about?
I applied for this festival, this music fest event in UCLA called maybe not Springfest. It was like a bicycle. I don't remember what it was. It's pre-pandemic, and I met them. I was in a duo at the time. It was like a different duo pre-pandemic, and we had met the band because they were also not applying, but like auditioning for this like festival, and then we just liked each other's stuff a lot. And like I just knew like it was cool to just like the concept of working with the band like just seemed really cool. Yeah. Even more so than just like working with people who play instruments.
Like a whole band.
Yeah. It's like I think that's always cool because you're going in knowing that this is like they have their own thing going on, and they have this like collective conscience. It's not nothing to build. So it was really cool.
And you're thinking about your music, like your own music, in a very different way.
Yeah.
Like I think that kind of pushes your brain to think about something in a very different way. That's super sick.
High key.
Did you take any like big lessons from it? Like any big things you learned that, you know, from those performances that you kind of like maybe changed the way you were doing things from that point forward?
I think not really, but I think it was really fun to just hear my music in a different light, in a way where it's like, you know, like some songs, like it's cool having like bossa nova style rhythms on like just like a lot of my rapping songs. Like, you know, that was always really cool to me. Or like I have a song off my last album and we performed it live, and if it was a lot more grungy. Like we made it grungy.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
off the new project?
Nah, off my last
gotcha.
my last album, romance demo. It was a song called Sharp, but it was very much like, I want to say maybe punk is just I'll just say punk in general. I'm not gonna go straight into like grunge specifically, but like, you know, it's just like it was crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so that was really fun, you know. Yeah.
I feel like that happens a lot with artists who play with bands. It's like playing it live can kind of change the way that you know, play it like for the rest of the time. It's like one performance, you'll, you know, play one random chord you didn't expect, or like, you know, the drummer would do a certain fill, and then it just sparks an entire different section or something.
I think something that recently did happen that I did do that did change the way I produced a lot though was I just scored a friend's film.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, my homeboy Cacho 4, he just he did his directorial debut for like a short film in Nigeria, and I did the music for it, and I knew that I wanted to just like venture into composition because I'm into like video games and anime and stuff, like early production stuff that I have some like stuff I would make for like a game or a movie, you know, but I think I really got to apply it to something. I actually got to apply it to a project for the first time, and it taught me how to just make something that moves before I can like bring it into a more song space.
That's interesting. Because that is what you're doing for a movie, really. You're just kind of like creating, I don't know, like a soundscape, I guess you could call it. Like you're almost creating something where it's like, this could be a multitude of different things, different people, but it's just like, you're right, like creating that before you give like your, you know, personal subjective experience to it is a whole different skill.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's so interesting. How did that come about? And like I haven't heard that, or the sounds for that in like a lane that your music kind of or your forward facing music kind of sits in, like were they similar to kind of your stuff?
Very like synthy electronic, very much so like fusion-y.
Nice.
You know, because very much fusion-y, synth, down tempo a little bit, some dramatic stuff too. Like it wasn't so much like Avengers horns and strings. Very much like coming to me, knowing the style I have and applying that to this project, which is like awesome. I think that's like that was like a really cool way for me to like start my career as a composer.
Did he come to you because of your sound? Like he knew he wanted this kind of stuff on it? Yeah,
because that's just my homie. Nice. So he just knows like my sound, or at least, you know, he just like likes the stuff. He knows like what I'm on. So I think he was like, I think I want to take it there for this project. And
sick.
I ended up being one of the people he just knew can like do that.
What's the movie about?
It's a psychological thriller about this drug deal gone wrong in Nigeria. Whoa. Yeah.
That's trippy.
Yeah, it's freaky.
Yeah.
It's super freaky.
We had a friend on the show a couple weeks ago that he also does some composition stuff, and we were talking with him about, because he similar to you, like his forward facing artist project, he a lot of the music has lyrics and words and he sings on it, and we were talking about how different it is trying to express a message only through sonics opposed to expressing the message through sonics and words.
Yeah.
Very different. Like, you have to kind of think in an entirely different way. You're limited a lot. But I kind of compared it to, like, I mean, I'm a drummer, and I remember when I was a kid, like, I never understood. I was like, why would any drummer not want 2 rack toms and a floor tom and 4 crashes? And, like, why would anybody want to play with a smaller drum set? And then I did it, and I started thinking about the drum set in an entirely different way, where I realized, like, limitation was breeding this very, very specific sense of creativity in me, where it was like I was thinking about things entirely different. So I'm curious, like, kind of having to do, do that in a different way, kind of having to, like, send a message through just the sonics and not through the rapping. Was that difficult for you? Like, what was the hardest part about it?
I don't think it was too difficult. I think I just had to learn how to go about, like, playing something in almost real time. Like, we're running back the scenes and I'm just playing as I go. Yeah. Which is not something I do very often.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
So it was just like, it felt like some, like it's literally like me as a music composer and, like, my homie who's the director. And we're just literally, like, in the screen, and I'm just like, like, it was just like
you're doing things live.
It's like live. And I think doing that was something I didn't know was just a good way to go about it, because I tried to do something different, and, like, it was just like a frustrating session. Like, it was just, like, really frustrating. I tried to just, like, I don't know, like, play in pieces and, like, punch in a lot more, and it's like, oh, this is not the speed. This was not my speed.
I mean, also, like, damn, bro, it's got to be hard to, like, replay the scene in your brain and then write something to it. I imagine you got to be watching it.
Gotta watch it.
How many times were you running these scenes back, like, trying to figure out the right part to play?
It was that second session that we had for it specifically. Like, that was, like, the whole session, like 3 hours or something. 3 hours of just, like, and the first session we had went really well. And it's because I, like, just played as I went, as we watched it, and I didn't know that, like, that was just the thing I should have just kept doing for myself. So that second session, it was probably, like, maybe, like, 3 hours of just, like, bruh, like, I'll try something else. It's, like, hot. We did that shit, like,
hot and cold.
It's literally hot. Like, it was, like, August, and we were, like, baking, no AC, like, so we're just baking in front of this TV, and I'm just like,
fuck this.
Well, you know what, bro? We'll just come back on Thursday. Like, oh, shoot. Oh, yeah.
When you hit it, did you know? Like whenever you had something for the scene where you're like, that's it? Did you know immediately?
Yeah. Once we came back, and I just did it. I just did it the same way I did it the first session, where it's like, I'm just gonna, like, look and play it, and, like, it just made sense for both of us. It just made sense.
That makes sense. You're kind of wearing a whole different hat at that point than you are as a normal producer. That's really cool.
I think that's why I think it's why it just helped. I think that's why, because that's where it started. Just like what changed, what was the change I had in my production. I think that's what really did that for me.
Yeah. Interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I always think that, like, those two worlds should combine more. I think some of my favorite producers are come from that world very often. People who have, like, done the film scoring stuff, and then they've also gone and done their own stuff. Like, I mean, whether it's, like, Trent Reznor or, like Arcade Fire, a whole number of people who have, like, been very successful musicians on their own that have gone to, like, score films in the coolest ways. Ethan Gruska is a guy who's really, really fucking good at that. Really cool producer, who's worked on a bunch of sick stuff, but also, like, has some really cool, like, compositions that he releases separately from that.
It's crazy.
I think, like, separating your brain in that way kind of allows you to think about things very differently.
That's crazy. I don't listen to, like, I don't come across a lot of, like, Trent or Arcade Fire, so I didn't know that they were also in those spaces.
Yeah,
so
dude.
That's crazy. But I only knew about, like Ludwig Göransson, you know, and, like, seeing how that was, like, such an applicable thing. I was like, wow, okay, maybe I'm not tripping.
Yeah.
You know, now I'll, like, compose stuff and, like, sample myself.
Yeah, that's sick.
You know, stuff like that.
Who's some cool people in hip hop that have scored stuff and sampled and done compositions for movies? I'm trying to think. There's got to be some.
RZA.
Oh, yeah.
RZA did a lot. He
Who else, Mario?
Might have worked on like Kill Bill or something.
LP did some soundtracking stuff.
Who?
LP.
Oh yeah.
Run the Jewels.
Oh yeah.
Heard.
One of Church Point Never has done composition, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's for something. It had to.
Yeah.
Cut Gems.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Was it Inspector Deck? Somebody in Wu-Tang, I think, did a film, scored a film.
We need more.
But that wasn't
bro.
RZA. I think it was Inspector Deck. Whoever also makes beats that isn't RZA.
Yeah.
I think it's Inspector Deck, bro. I'm gonna keep looping around about that. But yeah, whatever.
One of them.
Hip hop.
We got ODB on the desk right here. You see that?
No, I didn't peep that's who that was. It kind of looked like Coolio for a second.
Nobody can tell it's ODB, bro, because it just like it kind of only like vaguely looks like him.
Bro, the break. We need to know that these are break. Actually, no. Okay, it's not that bad.
It's a little vague though. Like you could probably confuse it for a couple other people. Who said it was Kendrick the other day? So Sody said it was Kendrick the other day.
This look like Coolio, bro. You can't see the. It's like you. Okay. I want it to make sense. I want it to make sense. I keep looking at it.
I wish the hair was bigger and like thicker. Like it's kind of difficult to even tell that it's like the ODB hair.
Yeah, it's gotta go up and then curl out a little bit. This is a bit all over.
Like that very easily could just be like somebody with like spiked hair or some shit, you know? Like
exactly.
It's not really just the ODB hair specifically.
Yeah, he's still tough though.
Yeah, no, I fuck with him, bro.
And Peter.
What so it's cool that you mentioned. Cause I didn't expect you to say this, but it's really cool that you feel like you're as much in the electronic world as you are in the hip hop world. Do you feel the same way about jazz stuff? And is that a musical world that was very dear to you at any point? Well, I guess, is it very dear to you? And did you kind of explore that as you got into hip hop, or was that something that came after?
Yeah, I think naturally I was always gravitated towards jazz and electronic stuff in the same way where it's just like hip hop was becoming a bigger genre for all of us growing up, How
old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay.
So like, as a child, like, I'm probably like into like, I don't know, like Kanye West, like, probably like, or like Kid Cudi or something. But like even then, like it's not so like it's not active. I'm not actively listening.
Yeah, it's just like fun, whatever.
Passing, like passing through. Same way I'm listening to like whatever pop, like Gorillaz or something. Yeah. And that too, like if we talking about like electronic and jazz, like I don't consider myself like. I think the things I do when I make music are akin to those spaces, but like when it comes down to it, if an electronic user and a hip hop producer are using the same equipment, if they're both using an MPC, like it means something, or like it just means that like it's not so different. And like when it comes to jazz in the same regard, like I think I'm probably just more attracted to jazzy stuff because I'm really into. I think I was always into that stuff, but like same sort of deal. Like just like the music I was listening to would be like I'm a big Pokemon guy.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I was into like. Me
and my roommate talked about Pokemon for like 30 minutes this morning.
Dog.
Yeah. He came out of his room this morning wearing a shirt. It was an Ass Pizza shirt with a Seadra on it. And I was like, oh, that's so hard.
Just a Seadra.
It was a Seadra. And then it said like, what's the area code Ass Pizza puts on all of his clothes? 730. Yeah.
So fucking.
It was hard. It was hard.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you already know, like I'm like 10, 11 years old. Playing Pokemon Platinum.
Yeah, nice.
And like that score.
I was a Pearl kid.
Okay, cool. I had Pearl first, and then my homeboy gave me Platinum. So
yeah, Platinum was fun.
Diamond,
Garantina.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Diamond. That's my favorite legendary. Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. That score. Like that soundtrack is
good.
It's my favorite. One of my favorite like bodies of work musically like ever.
Wow, bro. I don't revisit it enough. It's so good. I honestly have never revisited it, but some of those songs probably would just be seared into my brain.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is before me knowing anything about like music or genres or anything, but like, that's something that just always stuck to me before I thought I was going to make music. And I think that project specifically, that soundtrack specifically is very jazzy. Yeah. It's very jazzy. Like
some of the slower songs for sure.
Yeah, they have a lot of that, but it is also some classical, some electronic, but like that's where a lot of my like flavor palette I was like very notable. Like if I'm like between like the ages of 8 to 10, it would be like that and like, you know, some like old Kanye, and then leading into like when like Gucci and Jeezy are like mainstream and they're on the radio, and obviously like Lil Wayne, Young Money, like. So I think, what was it you were asking about, like the jazz portion of it all? Like, was it always like
and
there? An electronic?
Yeah.
I think those aspects were always just there for me before I was an active hip hop listener.
Yeah.
So that's where everything that I like to do as of right now just comes from that place. Very jazzy. And even if it's not so much of like conventional jazz as we know it, even if it's a bit more like acid jazzy, fusiony, like, you know, it's still a derivative of that. So I still consider myself like it'd still be pretty funny to call myself a jazz artist, but like, you know, I think that's a direction I'm headed towards.
Yeah, you're definitely not like a jazz artist, but like certainly influenced by jazz, 100%. Like in most of your stuff, almost all of it. Like there's not very many songs where I'd be like, oh, like you can't place that at all. You can always place it at least a little bit. Yeah, that's really cool that you've heard the Pokemon soundtrack. I've never even truly thought about how jazzy that soundtrack is, but it really is. I talked to there's a really cool rapper named Kazuo. He's a really sick, like, Japanese American rapper.
Word.
He's super fire, bro. But he was on here a couple weeks ago. We were talking about Japanese jazz a bit, and like how much that world is like kind of like revered in Japan, but there aren't very many like genres in Japan outside of like jazz and pop that have like very specific Japanese sounds. But you brought up anime earlier too, and that's kind of a cooler world as well, I think, in terms of music. Yeah. Like the soundtracks, those are so specific. I don't even know what genre I would like fit those in. I mean, indie, like
not even, bro, because when you think about it, like it's the same thing with video games. Like there isn't, when people say video game music, they don't a lot of times, or anime music, like you don't really know what that means until you hear what we're talking about. So for me, I thought that an anime music for a long time was just pop punk.
Yes.
Because all the theme songs were pop punk. Or like, you know, same way game. People will be like, oh, that's video game music. It might just be just house music. Yeah. It might just be house or acid jazz because they're probably talking about like Street Fighter 3, Third Strike, stuff like that. You know, people like Sonic. Sonic has a lot of, you know, it's definitely like if you hear some fucking, if you playing Sonic and maybe some like ska, they're still gonna call it video game music. So it's like, that being said, like I think the anime thing is like a very similar thing. There isn't really a sound for it. It's just like what's you know, per project, what's the point of interest in the music? Yeah. What are we listening to?
I suppose I've never like specifically put it on pop punk as terms of anime interest, but you're right, that is very much what it is. Yeah, I've never even like considered what genre that may be, but it certainly fits in that world.
It's adjusted because that now it's like, you know, somebody who's half my age watching anime might think that like, you know, like J-pop or like J-hip-hop or something, like even like maybe that's what anime music is. But I only say
relative.
You know, it's completely relative. It doesn't even exist. I'm only calling it, you know, the anime music is only pop punk in my brain because when I was a kid, the theme songs would be like by the stance punks who do a lot of like, you know, it was just like they're hitting that type of thing, or like Asian Kung Fu Generation. Like these are bands who are in that, like I think of them the same way I think of Paramore.
Interesting, yeah.
And like, you know, that's just not the thing going on no more. So it don't really mean nothing. You know, same with genre, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think genre, Mario said this one time and it really stuck with me. He said a good song is good in any genre. Yeah. I think it's incredibly true. I think it's more so just about the basis of the sound and also like what the song is saying and like the tempo and things like that. It can be the distinguishers, but like all genre really is like a series of sonic choices. That's all it really is. Yeah. And at a certain point, it begins to blend entirely. And I think when you talk about scores, that's a really cool example of it, because like you're very right, I think, in saying like, oh, like something like the Pokemon Pearl, Diamond, Platinum soundtrack, like those very much are like jazzy things, but like they're not like, you know, you don't listen to that and hear like woodwinds and somebody playing with traditional grip, and like you don't hear like strange rhythms and like jazz chords. It's not like what you're listening to when you're hearing all that stuff, but it is
sometimes
the chords for sure, but like
that's kind of the beauty in it too, when you think about it. Like the point is that like it's not so black and white in that realm, where it's like, because there might be they're playing those notes and hitting those techniques, that doom doom doom. I forgot what city it is, like one of the cities in the game, Veilstone City, like sounds very jazzy, like they got it's synthy, but that electronic harmonica, that MIDI harmonica is playing like jazz. It's a MIDI upright bass.
Interesting.
Dude,
I gotta go back and fucking listen to the Pokemon Pearl soundtrack. Who did it? What's the person's name?
It's 3 people. It's Go Ichinose, who does a lot of stuff, a lot of composers. I think mainly Junichi Masuda, who's the director and programmer. I think he was still working on the music.
Cool.
He might have started that way too. Yeah.
The director and programmer for Pokemon was the one who was working on the music?
Yes.
That's insane.
Sorry.
What a talented person.
I have to see who else did it. Yeah. Because there's one more person I'm missing.
You're good.
And that's it's gonna hurt me.
Yeah. I want to know, because I want to go back and listen to it.
Oh my goodness. It's Junichi Masuda, Go Ichinose, and Hitomi Sato.
Gotcha.
That was those 3. So there's a lot of like, it's some classical type on there, some jazz type, some super like electronic on there, and then some super like they do a lot of genres, but I think the ones that always like stuck to my mind were the jazzier ones. But everything played a role. It's just a soundtrack, it's just it's a compilation of songs.
Yeah, my favorite soundtrack ever is C418's Minecraft Volume Alpha.
Whoa.
That soundtrack is like mind blowing to me, and I listen to it so often.
It's like the earlier.
Yeah, the very first Minecraft soundtrack that C418 did, a Swedish producer. It's I don't know if it's only nostalgia culture for me, but it puts me in just like such a happy and like peaceful state. And I don't know if it is like just me being nostalgic as fuck for the game, or just genuinely the sound of the record. But it's so like, it just does such a good. It's so still. It's very still. In like a really cool way. It almost like a Brian Eno, like drone music way.
I was gonna say definitely like ambient type. Like for sure. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm also super into a bunch of like ambient music, like, and just like different things. I love Brian Eno. There's this band, the North Americans, that are kind of like this string ambience band that I love, and stuff like that is music that soundtracks more of my life sometimes than like forward-facing artist projects do. Because it's the kind of music that you can listen to in any setting, no matter what, and it just like, I don't know, it sets the tone in a cool way.
High key.
Now, I want to talk about the new project a little bit. One thing I noticed about it is that, I mean, you said it earlier, like the words you put to it were kind of like sing-songier, but like it's very different than a lot of your stuff, and there is way more singing on it, and a lot of it feels like even slower tempo and a bit more psychedelic, and it's a really cool world. I wanted to ask, kind of, I know you've sung before on a lot of stuff, but kind of going into a project where like the focus is more so in some of the singing of it. Specifically the second song, The Ride, I love your singing on. It's really cool, and I think it takes a really cool route that I didn't expect. But kind of going into that world, did you have to work a lot at your voice in preparation for recording these songs? Has that been like a main focus as you've kind of gone into this new style of music a little bit, or was it something that you just were waiting to use more of? And was it intimidating at all, or was it more exciting?
I think the latter. It's definitely just as intimidating as it is exciting, because that singing is just a whole another instrument to work through. This is my first, like, those songs. I think those 3 songs are definitely like the first time where it's like, no, like, I'm not gonna say the first, but like I've never like put 3 songs together and the songs are like, I'm going to make a song where I'm singing, like even for the sake of that, because I have a song on my first album where I'm singing and it's like auto-tune and jazz and stuff. It's really cool. It's called Can You See the Moon? But I remember making that song. It wasn't even it felt in my brain, I was like, let me make a song that's like not hip hop for the sake of like people understanding that like I'm
not just a rapper.
Yeah, and I think it still comes from that same place, but I think it comes from a similar place, but I never really just leaned into it the way I did for like my next release.
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
excited for the reception of it, to see it? Is there any bit of nerve that comes with it?
I think I was pretty nervous last year because I made all 3 of these songs last year, so I was pretty nervous.
Damn, so they've been in the tuck for a while.
Yeah, I have a lot in the tuck. Like this isn't even like I'm doing a lot of music releasing this year, so this isn't even like the definitive. This isn't my definitive 2024 project or 2025 project. This is just like another step along the path.
Nice.
But I think I just had a bunch of stuff, and I was pretty nervous. I was pretty nervous to do something. It's pretty nervous doing something knowing that there's a lot of people who have expectations for what you're doing. Excuse me. Yeah, because everything, you know, a lot of people, like I know how, like, I feel like me maybe being younger and like perceiving music a certain way from certain artists, like people are still going to call me a rapper.
Yeah.
Even if my biggest song is, you know, whatever is on one of these projects.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever happens. Like, even if my biggest song before I'm off this earth, like if my biggest song is not a hip hop song, like they're still gonna call me a hip hop artist.
I mean, even right now, your biggest song isn't even really like hip hop.
It's like
I mean, it's kind of like a neo soul song
like,
or whatever,
yeah,
a pop song.
Like I'm rapping, but yeah, it's like I'm doing a doo-wop thing.
Yeah.
And incorporating hip hop, like, so it's just like that being said, like, you know, I have to remember that like me having the awareness from that doesn't take away from like whatever I'm doing for myself. And I don't have to move a certain way because I'm aware of that.
Yes.
That's what held me back from releasing this stuff last year, where I was like, you know, like I want to, but I don't know how it's gonna be. I'm gonna be like, will this be perceived as a lack of hip hop thereof? Will everything, like, is everything gonna be like Kwame's doing a hip hop thing or Kwame's not doing a hip hop thing? Like, is that my end all be all? But like, that isn't really what I think of myself. And like, I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
So like, me releasing this stuff now is kind of like me being like, it's not that deep. Like, I don't care. So
yeah.
It's like,
and if you don't care, fuck whatever anybody else says. And also like it's. I think as an artist, it gets so discouraging to like need to jam yourself into like an uber specific box from like a sonic level. Like that shit sucks, bro. Like that's not really what artists do. Like it's, and I think the music industry sometimes, contrary to that opinion, they very often want artists to be one thing, but that is kind of like the opposite of what artists are in my brain. Like art is forever changing. Artists are forever changing. It's an expression of what makes you move in the moment. That's literally what it is. So it's like to have the same song or have the same sounds come out of you at 17 and at 30 and at 40 and at 50, that just means you're a stagnant person. Like that doesn't happen for most artists, and then most stagnant people aren't artists, you know. So it's like it's really strange that, like, I think I guess it makes sense from a listener level, but I think the music industry sometimes wants to box people into these very specific boxes for branding purposes because they believe that they know how to brand a certain kind of artist in a certain way, but that's not what an artist is, you know.
No way.
Yeah, people just keep moving and growing, and that's kind of the cool part about it. You always have something new to say, you know. I mean, even outside of the Sonics, though, the cover of the project I thought was really cool too, and also just the title. I was curious with the title. Like it almost felt like I was curious if you were referring to like a certain person as the dog, or like what the dog even meant. Like and the cover as well was really, really cool. It's kind of like this oil pastel type painting, really cool. And it very much, hearing you talk about video games so much, it certainly gave me the feeling of like an old cartoon, which I think is a world that is very similar sometimes to video games. But I was curious, like, did that title and the cover come to you in the midst of making it? Did it come before you made it, or did it come after you made it? Like, was there a moment where it hit you and you kind of figure out what you wanted the project to be labeled as and what you wanted the art to look like?
The art I already had in mind, like, from the beginning. The first track. Okay, also context, like, I have this, if it's not already April, or if this is like past April, I have a project. It's like a 3-song EP called A Dog Can Do So Much.
We can also cut the name of it if you want to.
That'd be. I mean, you know, I'm not too pressed.
Okay.
I think it's like kind of fun that way. Like, you know, whenever anyone hears this in the future, it's like,
yeah,
ooh,
cool.
Ooh,
yeah,
he's talking about that one project. So, and the cover is like a sleeping dog, and it's very like warm and like yellow. So what happened was I made the first song. That first song I made like in May of last year, and I knew I wanted to just make a body of work that was like that, like just like see how far I could go without rapping. And then like I just overthought it, so like I like put it down. But then like eventually I still just made more music in that vein, which ended up like birthing those 2 other songs that are on the project. And the project had a different title first because I wanted it to be a bigger thing, but it was gonna be called I'm like should I say it? Nah, I'm gonna keep it.
Okay.
But it had a different title based off of like, cause it was gonna almost be like it wasn't gonna be a side project necessarily, but I was going to just present it in a way where it's like me doing a thing.
Yeah. And almost like I don't want to say like a novel, but almost like you know, like Kwame does this style.
Yeah, it was very it came off very side questy. Yeah, and I think that's what held me back from doing it, because like it's not a side quest. Like,
it's you.
Everything I'm doing is just the main part of myself. But I chose I knew the original title had something to do with like the summer. Which is why
almost like you doing this in a certain period of time. Yeah,
like I'm telling a story. Okay, I'm gonna say half of it, because it was gonna be a character, but that character, it was gonna be like so and so's hottest summer.
Okay, yeah.
It's gonna be so and so's hottest, because I still might use that name for something.
Yeah.
So this character's name, it was going to be his hottest summer. And like that's where like the sleeping dog and the warm tones come from. And the cover was done by my homeboy Josiah Davis, who's like crazy artist. Like,
it's a very beautiful cover.
Wonderful artist, great guy too. But like I had that in mind just for something that just looked like a really hot summer, and I think like a sleeping dog in the sun. Yeah. Like it just added up. Like it was supposed to just be that too.
It feels warm for sure.
And then I had the name A Dog Can Do So Much somewhere in between deciding to like make this thing like actually happen. But I'm just talking about myself. Like I am the dog in question. Yeah. Just
because like you can do more than what you'd previously done.
Yeah, like even not even like in the way where it's like musically I have some hats. Like of course it is that too. But it's just saying like as a person, like like as whatever I am, like we're simple but we're complex. You know, that's the thing. So it's kind of just like, it's kind of like a joke in my mind, that sort of way. Like I'm like a dog can do a lot of things. Yeah. You know, it's almost like a joke. It's almost like a joke. It don't mean nothing, but because of that, it means something. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I get that. It's also the kind of thing I think that the listener can instill their own meaning upon.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's really cool. Like I think that's what I get out of it when you say it means nothing, so it can mean anything. Yeah. That's really cool, because it's kind of like this world that like people can kind of see themselves in. Yeah. Like I'm the dog, you're the dog, we can all be the dog, you know?
Exactly. It's very, you know, I want it to be applicable. Like it could mean anything. Like, yo, can you know, in the same way you're like, oh, this guy can like write, produce, make music. Like, oh, a dog can do a lot of things, like, you know, but it don't even have to be music. Like it could be like, oh, this guy, like he fucking cooks a lot, or like likes to ride bikes or go on hikes, or like
life is not just music.
Like is into pro wrestling or something. Like just whatever is going on, it's like, wow, like this one thing has so much in it, you know, same way a dog is, or any animal. But like I think I chose a dog because I think I'm a cat person, but I think I have a personality that's a bit more inverse of a cat. So I just thought like I just felt more like a dog. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I picked dog specifically.
I feel that. I definitely put you on being a cat person. Yeah. That makes sense. All right. What if you had like, last thing I'll ask you, if you had one goal that you could translate from the project, like one thing that you hope that people would get from it after listening to it, what do you think that thing would be? I guess outside of the title, that a dog can do so much.
Yeah, I guess if there's something to take, hopefully this can be, you know, I don't really have, besides just like, you know, a novel, like, you know, a story, something to read, to entertain. I think outside of that, because I wouldn't really say I have something to give like actively in this. Like, I don't know if there's so much of an active message in the music, besides like my own personal expression. But it would be cool if maybe this is an album that really like can provide a new perspective for somebody, whether it's just like, you know, it's just music. Like, I like all types of music. If somebody could say, oh, I like all types of music, and then they just mention like Kwame Adu because of like this project, like that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Or like somebody just understanding that like things aren't that deep, you know, and that can like help them become a better person for themselves, and then essentially you become a better person for the world. I think that's always a goal of mine I have, not even so much with this project. So I think if I can do that for somebody off the strength of just making music, I think that's a pretty cool bonus, you know, considering that I make music, you know, for my personal like expression and purpose.
And then not everything has to be explained so vividly and specifically.
I feel like that like it's really that, like it's never really so explicit in that way. You know, I'm telling you where it's going on in my brain. Like, in conjunction to the state of the world.
The cover gives that. It definitely gives kind of like this dream brainscape in a really cool way. But bro, I'm excited for people to hear it. I love the project a lot. It's really cool. I think it's a really cool different 3-song snapshot of what you can do, and I think it fits very interestingly in your discography in a really cool way.
Thanks, dog. I'm excited to have it out, and like it's cool to just, like you said, just do different things, because I'm still rapping a lot. Like I still have a lot of you know, hip hop songs coming out this year, and I just released in the end of February or end of January like a hip hop song and like a jazzier singing song, and they're both like I look at both of them like electronic music, because I'm doing some like deep house sort of derivative thing on one track, and the other one it's bossa nova. It's like Latin drum kind of syncopated, but it's still like very psychedelic electronic synthy, and then this being like sing-songy and like almost sounds like band, like it's very much
slowcore. It's kind of what word I was using to describe it.
Slowcore, low key, like exactly, very very like chill kind of. And then like it's almost indie. Like this is almost like I would like, you know, this is almost like an indie project to me.
Totally,
like,
yeah.
You know, and then the next stuff is still like me rapping, but it's just like whatever I'm on or whoever I'm working with.
Yeah.
Just like just a mixed bag. Excited to have a mixed bag this year, and just like even more than that, excited to just put out a bunch of music.
Fuck yeah.
Because I didn't really do that like the last like few years. Like,
do you have a whole plan for the year, like how much you're releasing?
For the most part, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just like making music as I go, so it's always gonna change. Like, you know, the plan isn't so linear. It's you know, if I like a song enough, that might just be the next one. Like my last release, I had only made both of those songs maybe like in like November.
Yeah, but it felt right. And
then they came out in January. And
that's beautiful, bro. Well, I'm very excited to hear it, man.
Dog,
Thank you for doing this, dude. I really appreciate it.
I was happy to. I love just, you know, I always feel weird like talking about myself. So like in a space where like that's the purpose, like I'm always happy to just rant.
Fuck yeah, dude. Well, I appreciate it, man. You have a really cool perspective, and your inspirations are really cool, and I love your music a lot. So very excited to have you on, and thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, bro. Tell them where they could find the project, where they could stream your stuff, follow you, do all the stuff.
You can find everything at Kwame Adu, KWAME ADU. You could find it pretty much everywhere. That's my name. I have a bunch of music just dropping. I just dropped this double single, W5 and Angel's Crest, in January.
Visualizer's really sick, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Me and my homie Caroline, she helped put that together with me. That was really cool. That was very fun to do. So a lot more of that, you know, a lot more visual work coming, a lot of more music, all types of sounds. You know, still working with people. Hopefully more collaborations before the year's over. But yeah, I'll just be making a bunch of music, so just watch out. You know, it's all coming out.
Hell yeah. Thanks a lot, bro.
Thanks.
Appreciate you, man. All right, music matters.